Now let's discuss testosterone. So the testes are responsible for spermatogenesis and secretion of testosterone. And testosterone is synthesized from cholesterol by the Leydig cells. So cholesterol is that precursor for all steroid hormones. It enters the cytosol from lipid droplets and diffuses to the mitochondria. And just as we saw for estrogen synthesis, cholesterol desmolase is the enzyme that converts cholesterol to pregnenolone, and it's stimulated by LH. Only here, remember, we're in the Leydig cells in the testes, not the theca cell in the ovary. And so the Leydig cell uses the same series of enzymes to synthesize testosterone. In addition to the testes, there are several other tissues that can produce small amounts of testosterone, including the adrenal cortex or adipose tissue and skin, for example. And testosterone can then be converted to dihydrotestosterone, which is a much more potent hormone in target tissues by this enzyme 5-alpha reductase. So the functions of the testes and secretion of testosterone are controlled by the hypothalamic pituitary axis. So here is our seminiferous tubule with our Leydig cells out here in purple. And if we look, LH stimulates these Leydig cells to synthesize testosterone by increasing the activity of cholesterol desmolase, that first step in the steroidogenic pathway. FSH stimulates spermatogenesis and Sertoli cell function. So upon FSH stimulation, the Sertoli cell secretes lots of proteins, including androgen binding protein and inhibins, which are important for regulation. That testosterone that's secreted by the Leydig cells has local effects within the testes, and it also has effects at distant target sites. And within the testes, that testosterone diffuses from the Leydig cells to nearby Sertoli cells, where it stimulates spermatogenesis. And so this is an important relationship between the Leydig and the Sertoli cells. And this interaction is required for normal function. So we've said that spermatogenesis happens in Sertoli cells and that testosterone is absolutely required for this process. However, Sertoli cells don't have the enzyme that's required to synthesize testosterone, so they can't make it themselves. And so remember, the way that they get around that is to have the Leydig cells make the testosterone and then have it diffuse to the Sertoli cell where it binds that androgen binding protein and it's concentrated and can help with spermatogenesis. And this is just a reminder of the detail of that interaction with the Leydig cell in purple and the Sertoli cell here in green, and all of the developing sperm cells here in yellow. And so the lumen of that seminiferous tubule is over here to the right. And we said that the Leydig cell has LH receptors, and when LH binds, that activates signaling pathways that upregulate the enzymes that are needed to convert cholesterol into testosterone. So in response to LH, the Leydig cells make testosterone. Some of it goes to the bloodstream and will have effects throughout the periphery, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But some of that testosterone diffuses over to the nearby Sertoli cell. So the Sertoli cell requires testosterone in order to do their job, and they express receptors for FSH. And so in response to FSH, they synthesize androgen binding protein, or ABP, which then is able to bind the testosterone and concentrate it within the cytosol of the Sertoli cell and also within the lumen of the seminiferous tubule. Also remember that there's only one enzyme that can convert testosterone to estradiol, and that's aromatase. So in response to FSH, Sertoli cells express more aromatase. So in the female, there's both estrogen and androgens being made in the ovary. And here in the testes, there's testosterone and estrogen being made. It's just the ratio that's different between the hormones made in the ovary and the testis. When FSH binds, there's also increased synthesis of inhibins, which have a negative feedback effect, and growth factors that support sperm cells and spermatogenesis. Spermatogenesis involves mitotic divisions of spermatogonium and meiotic divisions of precursor cell types, and finally, maturation to sperm. So the most immature cell types are here by the basement membrane, and the most mature sperm are here lining the seminiferous tubule. And so Sertoli cells, where this process happens, are sometimes called nurse cells because they provide this supportive function to spermatogenesis. So spermatogenesis is happening all along the length of the seminiferous tubule, and it happens continuously from puberty onward. So the spermatozoa are then released into the lumen of the seminiferous tubule, move through the seminiferous tubule, and we're going to follow them through the testes and see where they end up. So they go throughout the seminiferous tubules, enter into the rete testis, then they move into the epididymis and down into the vas deferens. And finally, androgens have a number of very important functions. One is the promotion of sexual maturity at puberty, so the development of male secondary sex characteristics, things like development of body hair, deepening of voice, and broadening of the shoulders. So many different secondary sexual characteristics depend upon androgens. As we said, they play a role in stimulating spermatogenesis in sexually mature adults. Androgens also have effects on psychology and sexual behavior, so sex drive, for example. And this is another important one, so the formation of the male phenotype during sexual differentiation. And so this is what's happening during development.